We on? Aha, we are. All right, I think I've finally got everything ready. I don't have much to get ready, it just takes me a long time. All right, good to see everyone. We always glad to see people in Bible classes. We try to hopefully learn a little bit about Scripture as we're in here and just kind of adds to our Sunday services. We are glad you are here. Have a snowman tree. I know some of you probably have given to that. You may have saved up some money between last week and this week. Lots of snowmen out there have been added to the tree. Okay. I thought they were about all gone. I guess there's been more added, so if anyone would like to take a snowman off the tree. I don't know how many years it's been since I made the announcement about the snowman tree, but it lives in infamy, I guess. I thought I did a good job, but no, I really didn't.
Well, that really wasn't much of a seminar this morning either.
No. Well, I deserve everything he's given me, so we'll leave it at that. All right, any announcements or anything that anyone needs to make? We have any manly men in this class going to the manly men's party tonight? That's what I thought. Yeah, I told Sherry I need to be home in my recliner eating popcorn or something. Okay, Revelation chapter 2. If you'd like to be turning to that. Last week we talked about chapter 1, which is a picture of Jesus. First of all, it's a salutation from God, Christ, the Holy Spirit, and from John as he wrote the book. It pictures Jesus in symbolic terms that we can understand about what he's doing today and his relationship with the church. And he is standing where? In the middle of the candlesticks. As I think about these, I think about a lot of things that we really don't have time to explore too much. We're going to kind of learn what the book is about. But there seems to be a common thread in the religious world today, and somebody started this a few years ago, and it caught on, and that is, give me Jesus, not the church. Everybody ever heard that? Yeah, I want Jesus, but not the church. Well, the thing about it is, you cannot separate the two. You can't be in one place without the other. It's impossible either way. That's like saying that I love your family and I want to be friends with the husband, not the wife, so we're going to separate the wife from the husband. You can't do that, can you? You just can't do that, Dan.
There's also the same parallel to that. I want the baby Jesus, but they won't look at the cross.
Right. Yeah, baby Jesus, but not the cross. And the church is what Jesus built. It's where he lives. It's where he's at. And that's for emphasis' sake, I use the word "at" the end of that sentence. It's where he's at. It's where He is. And if you want Him, the only way to be with Him is to be in the church where He's living. I can't, if Gerald is in his house and I want to go see him, be with him, sit with him, and that's where he's located, I've got to go in his house to sit with him. I can't say, well, Gerald, I like you, but I'm not ever coming in to see you. Just doesn't work, does it? So you cannot separate the two. It's not one or the other. It's not a choice. It's both. Both or none. Both or none. All right, today we're going to pick up in chapter 2. And this gets us into using the patterns that we've developed over the last 5 or 6 weeks. And I'll be honest with you, when I started putting this together many years ago, I really didn't understand how important it was in these chapters until I was just almost done. And but I think as we go through these, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. In chapter 2, let me get that back to mine. We have the beginning of the letters to the 7 churches. Now, those have been studied many years, and I'm not going to go through too much of the introduction. What I want us to concentrate on is the statement that says, "To him that overcomes." That's the one I think that we have just really have not understood. You can get a lot of, like in chapter 2, it's the letter to the churches Ephesus, and he said that they left their first works. We've all talked about that in classes and talked about what that could be. We don't want to leave our first works. We don't want to leave the love of Jesus Christ. But each of these letters are addressed to the angel of one of the 7 churches. Now, I don't know, I told you last week, some things you just have to kind of leave as you know what he's talking about, but you may not know specifically. And I think that's kind of what this is here. Who does he hold in his hand? Who does God hold in his hand? He holds Christians in his hand, doesn't he? All right, and in chapter 1, Jesus is pictured as holding 7 stars in his hand, which represent the 7 churches, which represent all of God's people. So God's holding us in his hand. Now, in order for this symbolism to work, I think is maybe one of the reasons for this. He's holding the 7 stars, which are the angel of the 7 churches, in his hand. And then he divides that up into the 7 churches to a letter for each specific one. So there's one angel for each church, which makes the symbolism being used here work. You have 7 angels for 7 churches, which represents all, but then when you write the letter to the 7 churches, you have to the angel of the Ephesus, or angel Smyrna, Pergamos, and so forth and so on. So you have 7 of them, so 7 is the number that's used, and it makes everything work. Now, and I told you, and I'm firmly convinced at this, is that one of these letters, if it were written today, could be written to the angel of the church at Benton. Now, does that mean to a specific person? I really don't think so. I think it's now where the angel comes in, I do not know, but I know he holds us all in his hand. So it's written to us, just like it was to the 7 churches. All right. let's go down, and what I want us to do today and start, and we'll do as many as these we can. Chapter 2, verse 7. Says, "He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God." Now, what does it mean to overcome? What is the Bible definition, the biblical definition of overcoming? Turn 1 John, we need to do this together. 1 John 5. If I could get my phone working here. 1 John 5, we'll start with verse 3. It says, "For this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments, and His commandments are not grievous." Talking to Christians here, keeping the commandments of God. "For whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world." Now, what does it mean to be born of God? Be a Christian. Okay. What is the birth? Baptism. It's our second birth, our spiritual birth. Whoever is born of God overcometh. Let's see, where am I? Keep His commandments, and His commandments are grievous. For what's in verse 4, "For whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world." Now, what are we overcoming when we're born of God? Sin. We're talking about spiritual things here. We're overcoming sin. And then the rest of the verse, "And this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith." So how do we overcome this world of sin? Through our faith. That's what this is talking about. Our faith in God overcomes this world of sin. Now, why is that so important? Why is it so important that we overcome this world of sin? If we want to live with God eternally, we can overcome. That's what we have to do. We have to overcome this world of sin. And then verse 5, "Who is he that overcometh the world, but he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God?" So what is overcoming? It's our belief, our faith, and our obedience to Jesus Christ, right? That's how we overcome this world of sin. Now, I doubt that this has ever been used like this in Revelation, but I think as we go through, we'll understand why this works. All right, then go back a chapter to chapter 4. Chapter 4, 1 John 4, 4. Says, "For ye are of God little children, and have overcome them." Now, what does that tell you? Is that past or present or future? They have overcome. The overcome came when they became children of God, right? It's not future, it is past. They have overcome. Because greater is He that is in you than he that is in the world. Okay, I should have had some of this up on the board, but that's all right. I think we've covered that. I think I may be going the wrong way. I'm not sure. No.
But Lonnie, the last part of that says, "He who is in you is greater." So it's a present tense.
Yes.
It's a present tense victory.
Yes, it's you have overcome and you are presently overcoming. It's a continual thing. So, verse 2:7 says, He who hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches, to him who overcomes. Now, what are we talking about? He's making a statement here to the church at Ephesus that says, to him who overcomes, will I do what? Will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. Now, I want to put this on the pattern that we have drawn. How do we overcome? How did the children of Israel get out of bondage? Dan?
This letter is to the church, and they have left their first love. To overcome, they have to return to the first love.
Okay, yes.
So the instructions are to people who are saved but are in danger.
Well, that is true to a certain extent. It is true to the point if we fall away, we still have to come back. But our first overcoming is what? Conversion. Look at your pattern again. All mankind, when Jesus came, was in the bondage of sin. Now, where are people today who are outside the church? They're in the bondage of sin. How do we get out of the bondage of sin? By crossing the blood of Christ through baptism. Now, so where and how do we overcome? We overcome by crossing the blood of Christ through baptism. That is overcoming. Who is he that overcometh the world but he that believeth that Jesus is the Son of God, 1 John 5. And what is it that overcomes our world is our faith. So when we are baptized, we are moving from sin into the church. Now, what we have to do here is put the two things that we have built in the last 4 or 5 weeks is the pattern of the overcoming, or the pattern of being in the bondage of sin, crossing the blood of Christ, and when we cross the blood of Christ, what do we come into? The church, which is pictured where? In Revelation 21 and 22. Where is the church located today? Between the blood of Christ and how long will it last? Till he comes again, right? And then it'll be taken to heaven eternally. So what we have here is a pattern, a biblical pattern that can be used to understand these passages about overcoming in Revelation 2 and 3. So where is overcoming? Look at let's see if I've got my little pointer here. I don't know if this will work or not. Yeah, a little bit. Where do we overcome? Right here. That's how we overcome the world. Have we overcome sin? Have we? How did we overcome sin? Through the blood of Christ, through our baptism. Now, the picture of the church, I think my battery just left. No, it just can't show up. Not strong enough. The picture of the church is in Revelation 22, 21 and 22. And what is located in the midst of the church in Revelation 21 and 22? The tree of life. Now, what does this verse say? I got to get back to it. It says, "He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life." Now, what we've done is take the drawing in 21 and 22 and called it the church, which it should be, put it on the pattern where it's located today, and what does this verse say? It says precisely what the pattern says, doesn't it? "To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God," which is the church. I'm getting a lot of blank looks. Questions? Comments? These statements about overcoming in Revelation tell us what it means to be a Christian. Tells us what it means to overcome this world of sin. We leave spiritual bondage. We overcome this world of sin by being baptized and contacting the blood of Christ. We come into the church where we have access to what? The tree of life. Isn't that what we said in chapter 21 and 22? Picture of the church. We have access to the tree of life. Now, the next phrase is, I don't know, I just think it's ultra important. I don't know how to explain it to you, but other than say it somewhat that way. It says, "which is in the midst of the paradise of God." What is the church? The church is the spiritual paradise of God. Now, what does that say to you about the importance of the church and what the church really is? And we'd need 2 years, but we're not going to do that. But what did God make at the beginning of time for man to live in? The Garden of Eden. Do we consider the Garden of Eden a paradise? We do, don't we? We consider the Garden of Eden a physical paradise. Now, the point of all of this, almost, is right here. Is God built a paradise for man to live in? But man was not capable of maintaining and living like God had instructed. And when he sinned or when he fell, what did God do? He moved him out of the garden. He left God's paradise. But was it ever God's intent for man not to have a place to live? Never. So the Bible then, I don't know, you just have to do this on your own, I guess. But the Bible then is it shows how God brought man from the physical paradise in Eden to the spiritual paradise of the church. The first chapters in the Bible describe the physical paradise that God made for man. The last 2 chapters in the Bible describe the spiritual paradise that He brought us back to. The Bible, the Old Testament, is the travels of man from the Garden of Eden to the church. The
consider the thousands of years it took to get from there to here. I guess that's an illustration of how difficult it is to convince.
Yeah, yeah, and I never forget, and I appreciate when somebody understands this and catches this, and I probably shouldn't even tell this, but Hatler told me one time. He said, understanding that these events, beginning with the Garden of Eden, and I'd given him the little book, Eden to Eden, is what he was doing, and he read through it, and he said, that's the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen, is how God could use, in a physical sense, to bring back man to a garden, a physical, spiritual garden, that uses the same identical process in the spiritual garden as it did the physical garden. That is beyond our comprehension almost, is that God could take man. Let's just start with the pattern that I've got up here. Start with man in bondage of sin, cross the Red Sea, go into the wilderness. Where's the church today? It's in the wilderness of this world. Cross the Red Sea, or cross the Jordan River, which will be our second coming and take us into heaven. He did that in a physical sense, literally led those people through that pattern that is what takes place today in a spiritual sense. God brings us out of the bondage of sin through His blood, or the Red Sea. We come into the church, and we'll be there till we die or till Jesus comes again, and He'll take us to heaven. He literally did it in the Old Testament with physical people, literal places and things to show us what we're doing today. We're in the paradise of God. We are in God's garden. Let me read you a couple of verses here. It'll take me a second to get to them, but maybe not too long. I'm going to go to Isaiah, if you want to come with me. I'm going to go to Isaiah 51. In verse 3. Now, as we read these verses, we need to understand the situation that Israel was in. You know, they had disobeyed God over and over. They were going to go into bondage. They were in bad shape, right? They were in sin. How did God forgive their sins? Well, He didn't. Until what? Until Jesus died on the cross. Okay. Isaiah 51:3 says, "For the Lord shall comfort Zion." He's going to comfort Israel. He will comfort all her waste places. He will make her wilderness like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. That's a prophecy of what? The church. The church is our spiritual Garden of Eden. The church is our spiritual Garden of Eden. He said, I will make your wilderness like Eden and her desert like the garden of the Lord. Let's go to Ezekiel 36:35. If I knew how to use this thing. Ezekiel 36:35. This is talking about the same situation that Isaiah is talking about. It's how desolate the people were. I mean, you know, they were running around in the wilderness with nothing, or they were living out there by this time. And they disobeyed God so much, God had forsaken them. They didn't have anything. Their nation was desolate. Ezekiel 36:35 says, "And they shall say, this land that is desolate is become like the Garden of Eden. And the waste and desolate and ruined cities are become fenced and are inhabited." What was the prophecy there? Is that Israel would one day become what? Like the Garden of Eden. We today, and this is an indictment on me, and I think over the years I've come to realize this. We have no idea how important the church is, how valuable it is, and what we really have. We're living in the spiritual paradise of God. We're living in the spiritual Garden of Eden. And we take it for granted. I've often thought that, when we go out and we teach people, we have taken, let's say it works some. It has worked for many years. It grew the church back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. We've taken the approach that if you come to church, you don't go to hell. Well, I'm not sure that that's the total message we need to give. We need to let people know what we have, what the church really is, and how we can dwell with God today in the church, which is not available outside the church. The church is the spiritual paradise of God. It is the garden that He made for us to live in today when man fell from the Garden of Eden. He brought us back to another garden, which is the church. I don't know. I wonder sometimes if we conduct ourselves toward each other that way. We need to know what we have. We need to understand who we are and where we're living spiritually and what the church is. And you can't separate one from the other. Now, does that make a little more sense now that you don't separate one from the other? God is dwelling with us in a spiritual paradise today. You want to throw that paradise away and say, well, I'm going to go out here and find God somewhere else? You don't do that, do you? You can't do it. It's impossible. They're one and the same. So we need to esteem highly the church, and we need to look around and understand that we are all here. We are gathered together as a small portion of that total church that's in the world today. And we need to appreciate one another. We need to love one another. We need to know what we've got. We need to understand who we are and what we have.
Maybe we could help people understand if we're on a journey ourselves, we have a place to go.
Right.
We're going to take each other, and it's going to be a struggle.
That's right. Man said that we need to let people know that we're here to help one another. It's a struggle, and we need to help each other get there. But right now, we're living in the spiritual paradise of God. I don't have but 3 or 4 minutes left, but I want to go. Let's go ahead. I'd like to show you, and it'll impress on you a little bit more about how this works. Go to 2:11. Revelation 2:11. Revelation 2:11 says, "He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. Now this is what we preach and teach, but we don't apply it here. Revelation 2:11 can be illustrated like that. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh, how do we overcome? I went one too far, didn't I? 2:11. Let's get that one up. Through our baptism, we overcome this world of sin. And because of that, we will not be hurt of what? Isn't that what we teach? Isn't that what we preach? We just don't apply it here.
It seems kind of essential what they were trying to do in all these epistles that they were reading.
That's right. That's exactly right. The Bible tells us how to get into that church and how to act when we get there. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And how to share it with others. Now, I've got another little drawing, but it's virtually the same thing. But all mankind, you see the line there at the first, all mankind is traveling down that line. And they make a choice. Everybody in this world makes a choice of which line they follow. Are you with me? They either go across the blood of Christ, come into the church, and live with God on this earth, surrounded by the wilderness of sin, nourished how? Right under the drawing, nourished on the Word of God and living in the wilderness of sin till Jesus comes again in heaven, or we take the detour route and we go to the second death. That's what the verse says. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. That's what overcoming means in this verse. We overcome by the blood of Christ. So everybody makes that choice. Every person that's ever lived or since the time of Christ has made that choice. And maybe those are things we need to teach people. But we don't know them. Honestly, do we? And we know how it works, but we don't. I don't know. We just don't understand how to relay it to other people. But everybody makes that choice. They either overcome by the blood of Christ and head to heaven, come into the church and go to heaven, or they avoid that and take part in the second death. All right, we'll go with chapter 3 next week, hopefully. All right, see you then.